I'm Rachel Horgan. Join me each episode as I sit down with a guest co-host covering the latest business stories in the Seattle area. We'll read the news so you don't have to. This is The Weekly. All right, hey everybody. I'm going to introduce my guest right away. I'm sitting across from Pete Hanning, Executive Director of the Fremont Chamber of Commerce. Hi, Pete.
Good afternoon.
I wanted to do a shout out about where we're recording, and this is partly you're doing. We're going to talk all about the Fremont area and the construction and the traffic and the businesses and everything. So I reached out and said, hey, do you have a business that has a quiet space? And you suggested
Charlie's Queer Books.
Yes, I love Charlie's Queer Books. I live just across the water on Ship Canal, and I told you that I always walk to Fremont because I'm closer to Fremont than anything else. And you said I can identify as Fremont.
Very much so.
If I want. But I walked past this to go to this coffee shop, and in my email to Charlie, I wanted him to know like the impact of this bookstore. And I come out like at 30, and a couple years later, I started dating this woman who was still in the closet, and she was a big reader. And so I was walking to this coffee shop. I walked by Charlie's Books. So I walked in, and it's like, hey, do you have a recommendation for like a lesbian storyline? So they gave me one. I gave it to her, and we're not together anymore. But I've heard she's come out, and I think she liked the book. So it was just a nice. Especially for Pride Month to be recording here.
Very much so. We, so at the Chamber, we own giant scissors. So we love doing ribbon cutting ceremonies for new opening businesses or anniversaries. You know, If you have giant scissors, you got to use them as often as possible. And for the ribbon cutting for this opening, there was a couple there, an elderly couple who had come down from Everett because they had new to them, one of their grandchildren came out as queer, and they wanted to get a book for them. And they were so happy to be here. So I was like, well, get in the photo. Yeah. And, just that celebration, but also just what this business did for a wide, the reach, right? Obviously is more than just Fremont. You have people coming all over from the region.
Well, yeah. So thanks again, Charlie's Queer Books, for hosting us. We appreciate it. And like I said, today is going to be a special episode all about Fremont and why you are so perfect for this episode. First of all, I met you at a GeekWire event with John and Todd. They were recording a podcast and they were interviewing you. It was a live recording. And at the end, they asked for any questions from the audience. You had left, and then they asked me questions. I was like, we can talk about this traffic. Am I right? And they were like, no, you can talk to Pete about that. So then,
that's right.
Yeah, you reached out and you're like, actually, do you want to talk about it? So I'm so appreciative. And another reason why you're so perfect for this, a quick bit on your background is that you've been the executive director for 4 years, but it looks like you've been a board member and president and all the other positions that are possible for the Fremont Chamber of Commerce for close to 20 years. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
And then prior to that, you did have some time in kind of the work world with nightlife and hospitality.
That's right. So when I was on the board of the chamber, I was running the Red Door for 20 years here in Fremont.
And then you ran for city council.
I did.
So I feel like you have a good sense of the business perspective, the city council perspective, the average person who works in nightlife, all of that. So it comes together really well. I wanted to ask you, I think we hear like Seattle Chamber of Commerce, Fremont Chamber of Commerce, but for those that aren't familiar with this world, like what exactly is that and how is it different than a government agency?
So we are a member-driven nonprofit.
Okay.
The chambers are. And the Fremont Chamber, we represent a little over 200 businesses.
200, okay.
And we are on both sides of the Ship Canal, up to the zoo, along North Lake to I-5, and then both Stoneway and Leary Way. We have businesses as well. So it's kind of like a spider arm of kind of territory. And the way I like to describe a chamber in some ways is we're kind of like a health club in which you might be really needing to work on your glutes, and I might want to be losing some weight, and so I need more cardio stuff. And so we're resources, and we're also a community, right? And so we help stitch the community together, whether it's bringing other businesses together or advocating for them with governmental agencies, also marketing the community as well, tourism, and making sure that we have a safe and vibrant community. Fremont, like lots of neighborhoods, kind of requires healthy legs of the stool. So we're just one leg of that, where the neighborhood council is definitely another vital port. And then in Fremont, we also have the Arts Council,
Okay.
which puts on the Solstice Parade, and we produce the Fremont Fair.
Okay.
So in conjunction, yeah. So
yeah, a lot of definitely like a voice of the businesses. Is there an example? You mentioned the Fremont Fair, but maybe like a law that was passed, an event that was produced, a change that happened, something that you were Fremont Chamber of Commerce was behind.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about Fremont and transportation, and Fremont is really known for its bridge. It's very iconic.
It is.
It's different color than any other bridge, that blue and bright orange. But back in 07 to 08, we had to replace all of the decking leading up to the bridge.
Oh.
The approaches. And we worked with SDOT. At first, they were just going to close the bridge.
Oh.
All 4 lanes.
That would be bad.
Just be like, hey, we're going to get it done fast. Turns out SDOT and fast are 2 words that are rarely used together. But we really worked with them and worked well with them to keep a lane open both ways, and opposed to them, they typically like to do their full closures on weekends.
Yeah.
You're seeing that on I-5. You saw that on the Ballard Bridge. Well, we know that the economic activity on our weekends is really vibrant and really important. The Sunday market, which is celebrating their 36 years, they could get 10,000 people on a Sunday.
Yeah. Oh,
and so we worked with them to do nighttime closures. And I was running the Red Door at the time. And so we had to, as a business, be able to communicate with our customers at closing at 2 a.m. is like, hey, there is a shuttle bus system that's going up and over the Aurora Bridge and back down, because you aren't able to even walk across at this time, right? But it was a real success. We found a lot of compromise. So it was a big success.
Good. Okay. Well, I like that story. I didn't know that. We're, like you said, we're going to talk all about kind of the current project with Route 40. But one more thing before I get into that. Do you want to share what you and the zoo have in common about your website?
Yeah, sure. So Fremont Chamber, we own Fremont.com.
Fremont.com. And the zoo owns zoo.org.
And the zoo owns zoo.org. It is not uncommon for Northwest businesses and nonprofits to have really good domain names, because we were so early in the tech world, into that burgeoning business model of online and tech businesses. Fremont, I like to refer to parts of Fremont as the Silicon Canal, because we have such a huge tech presence here. But yeah, so we own Fremont.com. And so the city of Fremont and down in California in the Bay Area does not have it. Fremont, Nebraska does not have it.
That's right. It's here in Seattle.
So it's here at the center of the universe, as where it should be anyways.
Yes, of course. All right. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is close to my heart. Like I said, this is my neighborhood. I'm here all the time. And I want to start with the basics. So the project that's happening, if anybody's driven through Fremont, you'll see that there's construction. And it was to do a major upgrade to the Route 40 bus route, which goes through Fremont, Ballard, Westlake, and more. I thought initially that's the only thing the project was about. But when I did some more research, it's not only these bus-only lanes that they're creating, they're also creating new bike lanes. They're upgrading like utilities underground, electrical stuff, the curbs, the ramps, drainage, just a big upgrade all around. And so I think I was more, I guess, accepting of this project, knowing that it wasn't just creating this. And I was also like, why does it take so long to paint a road? But now I understand. But how did we get here? So when the city comes up with a project this big, you mentioned you worked together on that bridge project. What kind of conversations, if any, were had with the Fremont Chamber of Commerce? Did you get a heads up? Did they tell you how long it was going to be? What was that initial process like?
I think I want to start off by saying I really want to be fair to the city that these projects inherently are going to be very hard to accomplish without having some disruption in the community. Right. And you have a lot of different community voices that have sometimes cross-purpose and priorities.
Yeah.
Seattle itself is a very difficult city in terms to have a transportation grid on it. Geography, we have lots of water, we have lots of hills. So we don't have just this kind of easy cookie cutter straight, cross square grid system.
Yeah.
And the city did lots of outreach.
Really? Okay.
And so regardless of the department, whether it's a city agency or a county or a state or even at the federal level, people will get touched many different ways. And then a lot of them will be like, I didn't know about this.
Yes. People don't read, as I say in events.
People don't read. And also life is full. Like our
that's true.
Inboxes are full. Our lives are full of other things. So it's really hard, right? And then the project will start and people want to then relitigate.
So the chamber was informed.
For sure we were. And we have been involved. Now, what was the process could have been done a lot better. But for sure, the city did do a lot of outreach.
And how long did they say initially when they approached you?
So,
and
they
all
said,
it's
6 to 9 months, and we're going to start in the winter. Unfortunately, some of our concerns were when they were going to start.
Right.
And they started right before Fremont Fair last year, right around the beginning of opening of boating season, when this community has its busiest time for commerce and for tourism. And, they were going to be working through that time period anyways, but had they been able to start in the late winter or even early winter, like they had said and thought at the beginning, it would have been very helpful.
And how long has it been now? You said it was supposed to be 6 to 9.
It's been around 14 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we talked initially on this prep call, I want to get kind of in the weeds of this project. You'd mentioned there was one business in particular, Bellefleur Lingerie Boutique.
Mm-hmm.
She was very specifically impacted. What was her frustration and what ultimately ended up happening?
So going back to what you were saying about this corridor, I think it's important for people who are listening to know that like the state and the county and the city, we looked at it as a whole corridor and improvements to it. Transportation in the Route 40 was the primary piece that they wanted to show improvements, but there's lots of improvements for pedestrian crossings and crosswalks and intersections and having them better timed for flow of transit. And also a big piece is the Fremont Bridge on both the north and south side are two of the busiest intersections or confluences for cyclists in the United States of America.
In the United States. Wow.
It is. The numbers are astronomical. Thousands of cyclists are crossing through both sides of the bridge daily, especially like on a day like today. And so as you come north, and if you're going north up Fremont, that next block between 34th and 35th was really congested. You had the 40, the 31, the 32, and the 62 all landed at a connection bus stop, which is great for if you're making cross-bus connections. But a lot of our buses are double in length, and it's a short block front.
That's right.
And so you just had all this congestion, and then you had 2 lanes of traffic, and you have cyclists trying to get up there. And so the city really took a look at that block front and said, we need to provide a safer way for cyclists going north through this block front. What they did, and this was a hard decision to come to, but when they prioritized the cyclists, they realized that they needed to split that connector bus stop, which is a really important tool if you can do it.
Meaning like the 40 and something else would stop one place, this
will
one
go through the next light and go up Fremont Place, which is that angled street in front of Bellefleur. And the 31, 32, and 62 take a right going on 35th, going towards the library. And they land there. And so if you are doing a transfer between the 40 and one of those 3 other buses, you're now having to cross 2 intersections. It recognized that we really needed to solve this cycling issue.
I think this is going to come up throughout our conversation, is that you can't please everybody. And it's a lot of stakeholders that have different needs, and we're going to do our best. But
sure.
But we want the pedestrians, the bikers, the bus people, the businesses, and the drivers. And this is like a really hard puzzle.
Yeah. And so because of that, once they had made that determination, it was then citing the Route 40 northbound stop, the first stop in Fremont. Where was it going to land? And they were originally going to have it land right in front of 3 businesses. At the time, it was called Show Pony. It was a beautiful women's boutique on the corner, Bella Flor Lingerie, and Maiden House, which is an Asian restaurant.
Yeah.
Those 3 businesses were really concerned about the impact to their businesses, especially Lindsay, a lingerie business where your clientele and your employees are buying intimate clothing.
Right.
There are almost always predominantly, if not entirely, women in the store, both working and shopping there. We know that busy urban bus stops create certain kind of activity or can.
Because I think if you look at something just on paper without considering what you just mentioned, putting a bus stop right next to a business, they get off the bus, they could go right into your, this is going to be great for you. And there's this like details that we need to think about.
So Lindsay is a fabulous small business owner, but she had never gotten active in this kind of community activism and supporting herself. So she really galvanized all of her fellow business owners on that block front and her landlord, the Peck family. And then the chamber, we came in and kind of provided a little more support and also deeper connections already with council members, with people a little higher up in SDOT, being able to really advocate for the moving of it. And so through these long months of conversations, we were kept on advocating to move it just slightly more to the west and have that stop be at the Lenin Plaza. Now, for me, that was going to be a big win, partly because the Vladimir Lenin statue is just such a cool way to enter Fremont or to exit Fremont. But like, if you're coming to Fremont for your first time and you get off and you've got this, post World War II modernist structure of a Russian leader in a United States community, it's kind of a mind fuck.
Yeah.
And it's a plaza as well. So there's a little more space. The 2 businesses, the Middle Eastern sandwich place and the Grinder restaurant, both of those would be impacted a lot less.
Yeah.
So we kept on advocating for that. Well, one of the things that the city, and this is where I really wish the city worked differently. In all of our meetings, we had a coalition of businesses and freight leaders and Ballard and businesses on Westlake and Fremont. They kept on saying, we hear you, but we're hearing the exact opposite from the Greenways community, the Transit Riders Union. They want the other part. And for sure, and their voices have just as much importance.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to minimize that. But what the city never did was to have the courage to put us all in the room together.
That's what's so interesting because, the average person, we don't know how these decisions are made. And I guess I just would assume that there'd be some kind of meeting, some kind of Zoom call, something.
So Gordon Paddleford, who's the executive director for what was Seattle Greenways, they are now Streetwise. I forget the name of they've rebranded, but great organization. And I really support a lot of their work. I love a lot of the work they do. I reached out to him and I was like, Gordon, could you find me 1 or 2 people from your community group that would be willing to meet with just Mike Stewart and I from the Ballard Alliance and maybe someone from the Transit Riders Union? And let's just have some beers and let's just talk.
I love that so much.
And so we met at the Triangle, and over the beers, we talked about what our priorities were, where we were coming from. And I shared with them, I was trying to move this bus stop. Well, it turns out, they didn't know that was something we were working on.
Wow.
And it wasn't a mountain for them to die on.
Yeah, it was a compromise they were willing to
Does it increase the walk shed? It doesn't increase the amount of crossings you have to do, intersection crossings, but it does increase the walk shed. And I acknowledge that. My aunt had a physical disability. She had spina bifida. So I do not want to minimize people with disabilities and what that did. But for the community for a whole, I really think having it land there was better. And it turned out that I could then go back to the city and say, hey, guess what?
We solve this. Yeah.
The group that you've been saying is against everything we're doing. They're not against this. Now, it's not their perfect, but
Sure.
but there was compromise.
Yeah.
And I think that it's that willingness to really compromise that I was disappointed. And then the other piece that I just keep on going back to, I'm so thankful that the city, so the money, big chunk of this money, no, not all of it, came from our transportation levy, the last one, the MOVE levies that we just renewed again last year. And we brought $20 million of resources into this greater long corridor. Great.
We love that.
I love that.
Yeah.
But I wish that they would have had a little more widened the lens to take a look at, okay, if we're going to invest this money, let's not just be so myopically focused only on bus route times. That there are going to be sections within communities where the bus, just like everything else, because of geography and the way Fremont is,
it's traffic.
It's just traffic.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that.
Yeah.
And we didn't get that. And I think the city both kind of planned it without, yes, they did outreach, but they already had their kind of preferred outcomes. And then the other piece is they signed the contract with the contractor without ensuring that that contractor had some responsibility to be engaged with the communities as well.
Right. And yeah, because I can see the contractors we're going to do what we want to do. And to your point about, I get frustrated seeing bus only lanes. I'd love to see the data. I think I could dive deeper into the impact on a bus only lane. And does it make it 2 minutes faster, but it makes everyone else's life hell? That doesn't seem great. And as driving around Fremont to get to this interview, there's a lot more turn only lanes. And does that benefit when there's kind of last minute, oh no, it's a turn only, swerve into the other lane. And then Fremont now kind of feels like instead of 2 lane back and forth, it's 1 lane almost the whole time back and forth. So, there's got to be data and studies around that. But going back to your point about the contractor, that feels like a place where there wasn't a lot of communication. Because you had said there were different ways where you wanted to make, everyone hates construction, we know that. But you were trying to make it less bad. So what happened there?
Some of the things that I was really advocating for, we had some lots and some locations that were off the street, but really close by to where the work was happening, that could have been used for staging of equipment, for a job shack,
stuff.
For their gravel. All the material it takes. And this is a big project. The city kept on saying, oh, we will share this with Jensen.
Yeah.
But, basically, Jensen, the contract was signed, and so, their hands were in their pockets, but there was a middle finger that I could see pressed up against their flack saying, fuck off, dude.
We don't care.
We don't care. And, you think you're getting screwed. The city's a pain in the ass to deal with on the other end.
Right.
Which I bet they are.
Yeah, but I'm sure.
I have empathy, and yet you're in my community, and one of the things I just wish I would have had an opportunity to build a relationship with the project manager and with Jensen themselves. That's one of my skills is building relationships. I can find commonality or I can compromise, but I just wasn't afforded that opportunity. There was always this kind of game of telephone where when I had a member who was having an issue, I had to reach out to the city. The city had to reach out to the right person at the city who coordinated with the contractor to get to the contractor. Contractor got it back to them. They got back to my point of contact. And then I could get back to my member. Yeah. Where we could have cut a couple of those people out and solved it a lot easier.
Yeah.
And it's those kind of things. It's kind of baked into the cake. Bureaucracy is inherently a little inefficient, but they're also reflective of the community. And I don't want to other the city because we are also complicit in how it all happens, in this making of this messy omelet.
Yeah. And Jansen, if you've recognized that name and maybe you don't live in Fremont, maybe you live in Eastlake, or maybe you lived in Madison Valley when they were doing the G line, it's the same company. And we were talking, this is just a theory, I don't know, but it's curious that they would do Eastlake or they're doing Ballard, Fremont, and Eastlake all at the same time, right?
Yeah, some of our issues as the project was continuing was it just seemed like they would start another section but not wrap up and finish up another part.
Look, I'm no construction expert, and so if you are, maybe like email in or let me know like what's the strategy there, because I don't get it.
But it did seem like they didn't have enough butter over too many slices of bread throughout the greater Seattle area.
Yes.
Eastlake, oh my God, like Capo Tamura is my wife's and my favorite fancy sushi restaurant. Tai Chi's been nominated for 2 James Beard Awards. He and Steven who run it, it's a fabulous restaurant. They have just been in the thick of it. And I am so sorry that they've been dealing with it. Yeah. Because Eastlake, unlike Fremont, doesn't have a chamber. So they don't have someone like me going to bat for them, being paid to send those emails, a couple times a week saying, what the fuck is going on?
Well, and Eastlake also has removed a lot more parking, I think, than Fremont did. So that's kind of combined frustration over there.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it put me in a really interesting place because my role as the ED of the Fremont Chamber, I support business. And I like being of service to business. And yet I found myself really being pissed off at a business and feeling like Jensen isn't a kind of business that I would want as a member of my chamber if that's how they showed up in my community.
Right.
Like I would have much preferred at the front end to say, hey, you're going to be in Fremont. Let me get you a list of all the restaurants that are open during lunchtime. Here's the ones that can bang it out quick. Here's a bar that if you're doing a Friday happy hour, would be more than happy to rent you back that side room and you could do a little happy hour. Here are some businesses, the PCC deli and all those things. Like I wanted them to come into my community and bring some of those resources that are in each one of their wallets. But I just didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to, that's the city's fault. In the way the contract was written and the way that they're just not willing to put us all in the room together. Put us in the room and then I'm confident I can make those connections or at least I can hear what the other side is saying and respect it, even if I don't agree.
I think that's like a big takeaway of this conversation with you, Pete, is put us all in a room and be willing to make some compromises. And it sounds like there were some ways where that was happening and also a lot of ways where that wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So, like I said, everyone hates construction. And I feel like part of why we're having this conversation is that, often it's like, okay, short-term pain, long-term gain, Yeah, this sucks, but like, we'll be okay. But part of why I think this conversation is interesting is that, will we be okay? Have we made this worse? What do you think? Like, do you think ultimately we're better for this project at the end? Or are we going to have to wait and see?
Well, I do think that we need to study it again and, the after effects and see what is it doing to the traffic in all the different intersections, and we can make adjustments. The paint that went down for bus-only lanes, paint is an easy thing. It's an inexpensive thing both to put down and to take up.
True.
So most of the work, the really expensive and foundational long-term work, great investment. Yeah. Really happy it came in. On Westlake going northbound, that bus-only lane,
oh, yeah, like right when you're driving by what used to be China Harbor. That kind of strip.
Yep, that stretch. They, at the very beginning, before this project started, said, hey, we hear you about freight because one of the things a lot of my businesses rely on getting deliveries or removal of goods and services. And this is you and I are sitting on the industrial side of the zoning. So this is industrial land. A lot of the maritime area is both maritime and industrial land. So freight is really important. That was supposed to be a freight and bus lane, what's called a fab lane.
Do other cities have that?
So it was going to be the first one in Seattle and studied.
Oh.
I haven't fucking heard anything from the city about it. It's like cricket. Now they put down the paint for the bus lane, and I have sent a couple emails,
like, hey,
and there's a new person. There's a new person, and once again, this is not personal to the individuals.
Sure.
But it's like, come on, guys.
We talked about this.
We need to talk about this. transportation is similar to public safety, where yes, some of the big infrastructure work is done or will be done soon, but the work is ongoing. We always have to fine tune how we use our streets. The fact that 34th is for the last 36 years an event street and it's for pedestrians is a great use of that street. And I would love to see more of that. So I do think we have the opportunity to still look.
Do you think it's still possible to have that freight? Do you think that still could be in the future to have a
For
freight
sure.
bus?
Yeah, there's no reason not to. The other thing that you mentioned earlier that I wrote an op-ed about the Fremont Bridge.
Yes.
The thing that makes Fremont so convexing, it makes it so frustrating sometimes, is the Fremont Bridge. It's also part of what makes us so special. So the Fremont Bridge is the lowest bridge of all the bridges from Lake Washington to the opening of the Puget Sound along this corridor.
Okay.
So just by that alone, it has to open more.
Right.
Also, where it sits is one of the busiest points for maritime business. There's a lot of shipyards right there on Lake Union.
Wasn't it? On Lake Union, but on the other side, isn't that where Deadliest Catch was filmed or something?
And then down at the Fisherman's Terminal. So this little truncated section is really the heart of the maritime business. And we're talking, along the ship canal, $2 billion a year of maritime commerce.
Whoa.
So it's real. So the bridge goes up in the summer times. It can go up 40 times a day.
40 times a day. Okay, this makes sense why every time I'm going, I'm like, how is that up again?
And if you add the 3 to 5 minutes, which that bridge is up and not allowing traffic, and you multiply that over the 40, you're taking hours out of the transportation network. And you also have 3 major arterials on both ends landing right at the base of the bridge, where unlike some of the other bridges, those arterial feeds are happening much farther back, half mile, quarter mile back. So there's more decking and capacity to load when the bridges do go up even.
Right.
So they have less impact that way. And, going back to, it is also the busiest pedestrian bridge of all the bridges in the network. It's the busiest bicyclist bridge, for cyclists crossing it. So it's a really active bridge, which is fabulous. There's energy to it, right?
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
But because of it, there's also just that tension. I feel like the traffic engineers kind of closed their eyes a little or thought like, oh, this is still going to save 20 seconds or 30 seconds for the bus. And it might, but it might cause other modes of transportation, trucks, cars, an extra 10, 15 minutes.
Yes. And I think that's what we're wondering if was considered. Was that part of the data, this unique bridge that we have? Because they couldn't put it into any other template or formula because the bridge is so unique, like you said.
And it's interesting because I'm an urbanist, but I'm not a Kool-Aid drinking urbanist.
Okay.
I'm a pragmatic urbanist, which means like, yes, and not just yes. And so those of my friends and colleagues who are much more strident urbanists will say, well, we just got to get everyone out of cars. I question whether that's going to happen. Partly, I know for myself, there are times when I live in a busy city, that if it's going to take me 10 minutes longer to get somewhere, but I'm in my own car, I can listen to my music. I'm not having to deal with anyone else because I'll have to deal with a lot of folks when I get out. I can eat a sandwich. I can pick my nose. I can do whatever, right?
Yeah.
I think that there's something about that space is sacred to some of us and that we're not going to give that up. And I think that those of us who really believe in more density and investing in our bus network and our bike network don't also acknowledge and validate the desire to be in a personal car.
Yeah.
I just wonder whether we're trying to force ourselves to eat the vegetables. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure how many of us are willing to eat those veggies.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at is kind of like a big picture culture. How do you change culture? And do you just make a car just so annoying to have that you force them into it? But I think that's like a whole different podcast episode of like shifting people's behaviors that way.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But yeah.
I mean, when you had asked a question at the GeekWire podcast about the Route 40, of course, my ears just like, they were like tingly because I was like, my God, someone wants to talk about the Route 40? My wife will pay you to listen to me because she is done listening to me talk about it. But I am interested in it, and I care deeply not only about Fremont as a community, but our city and our process. And one of the things I have been sharing after we're halfway through this project, my conversations with SDOT changed from my end. And I kept on saying, I want this to be different the next time you guys come into a community. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Is how do we do this differently?
Right. Like I want you to learn from this and hopefully.
And I want us to like, there's things that we as a community, whether it's a chamber or a community council, that we can do differently, or the Greenways community. Like there is ways for us to approach this differently, look at it differently, and still we should be wanting to make these investments in our community. Yeah.
Well, Pete, you've shared a lot with us today. I feel like you've really pulled the curtain behind how these decisions get made, kind of how important it is to just have conversations with people. And I'm curious to see the impact of this project on Fremont. And so we might need to do an episode in a year from now and kind of see how things are going.
Sure.
Is there anything that you want to close out with? Anything that you want the listeners to know about Fremont or anything otherwise?
Well, next week is the Fremont Fair and the Solstice Parade.
Okay.
June 20th and the 21st.
June 20th, 21st, okay.
The parade starts at 1 p.m. So the painted naked cyclists usually start around 40 minutes to a half hour before them. So a little after noon. If you want to come down for that, it is a really fun celebration, a little bit of history. So the parade was started by the Fremont Arts Council back in the early 80s. They have some strict guidelines on what is accepted. Some of the things that are excluded. None of the floats can be powered by anything but people. Oh. So they have to be human-powered floats. There can be no advertisements, words, political messages. Anyone is free to participate in it as well. It's a community thing. So it has this, like, I think, very authentically Fremont vibe to it. The Fremont Fair is, it's our celebration to the beginning of summer. We really love being kind of the kickoff to summer for the whole city. And then my favorite event is a smaller event, and it's on Sundays, and it is the dog parade.
A dog parade?
Now, my wife and I are crazy cat parents.
Yeah.
But I love dogs as well, and they have a big band. And dogs are in costumes and they walk the fairgrounds.
That's awesome.
And it is silly. And it's just a fun way to kind of walk through the fair. So I would encourage anyone to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, there's a lot of really cool things happening in Fremont. If you're listening, this is your sign to go check it out and come see the new bus lanes. See what you think. Email us in. All right. Well, I think that's it for this week, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
This has been The Weekly, with production assistance from Nick Patry. If you liked what you heard, rate us and write a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. We love listener feedback, so if you have any story suggestions, comments, or complaints, email us at info@theweeklyseattle.com. Make sure to check back next Sunday for the latest local business news. We'll see you next time.